What is up, YouTube, and what is up, Raider Nation? This is WiFiWillie, and today I'm going to preview the Raiders versus Bengals playoff matchup this Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. So I'm going to look at what the Raiders could take advantage of to get this victory, and I'm also just going to generally review the lineups and the strengths and weaknesses of each team. So hope you enjoy this video. Remember to like it if you want to support this channel, and subscribe to this channel if you want more Raiders and NFL news and analysis. Let's get right into it. All right, so first off, quarterback, that's what we all care about, right? The most important position of all. And so let's look at both of these quarterbacks. In general, Derek Carr started out with a really strong year, really strong first half of the season. Then you lose your number one receiving threat at the wide receiver position, Henry Ruggs, and things have changed since then, right? We've seen less big-time throws, less yardage in each game. Really concerned, the past 4 games, the Raiders have really had to win with their defense and their run game. Their run game has miraculously popped up, especially against the Chargers. You saw that this past weekend. But Derek Carr has really not even cracked 300 yards in any of these past 4 games. Didn't even crack 200 against the Chargers. And I just think in the playoffs, eventually, that's not sustainable. However, this is going to be a snowy matchup in Cincinnati. So maybe we're going to see a low passing yards game either way from both of these QBs. But just look at the numbers for the whole entire season. Derek Carr, 23 TDs, 14 interceptions, 68.4% completion percentage. And then that's 626 attempts. So a lot more attempts than Joe Burrow, who just has 520 attempts. And I have this number here, 16.7 P2S. You might wonder what that is. And this is all from PFF Premium Stats. What that means is the percentage of pressures that the quarterback receives, how many of those pressures turn into sacks? So percentage of pressures turn to sacks. Really important stat because it shows you how well a QB throws the ball away or maybe runs and gets some yardage or finds someone open. How many times do they do that while pressured, right? And so Derek Carr, 16.7% of his pressures turn to sacks. Now let's take a look at Joe Burrow. 25.9% of his pressures turn to sacks. Now, I know Joe Burrow has a bad O-line, kind of like Carr. I mean, they both have had an O-line that has struggled throughout the year, especially in pass protection. And we saw last time the Raiders played the Bengals, Crosby had a great day. Unique Ngakoue had a great day. Hopefully they can repeat that again against the Bengals. But I think this is why Joe Burrow's percentage is so high. A lot, like 10% more of the time than Carr. When he's pressured, it turns to a sack. Straight up. So either he's having trouble, throwing the ball away, getting positive yards when pressured, or I just think he's just facing a lot of pressure most of the time. 520 attempts, so he has attempted to throw the ball 100 less times than Derek Carr. But he has 34 TDs, same amount of interceptions, 14, and has 2% better completion percentage, 70.4%. I think that 2% better completion percentage is just because he's thrown literally 100 less passes than him. You should have a better percentage if you throw 100 less passes. And you can talk about the yardage. Derek Carr has 4,800 yards compared to Joe Burrow's 4,600. So Carr is having to throw the ball a lot more, and he's getting less production out of it, less yardage. And you could say maybe he doesn't have the same amount of weapons as Joe Burrow, and we're going to get into that. Higgins, Jamar Chase, these are good weapons for Joe Burrow. And like I said earlier, Derek Carr no longer has, Henry Ruggs, right? But we'll see what happens. I think ultimately for these quarterbacks, it's going to come down to clutch throws in key moments, converting third downs, converting maybe fourth downs, making smart decisions with the football. I think that's going to be the biggest factor for both of these quarterbacks in this game. Because it's a snowy game, you might get less attempts to throw the football in general. Probably going to be a run-heavy football game on both sides of the ball. Let's go ahead and take a look at key players from both teams. Players that are not just quarterbacks. There's other people on the team we got to care about. So for the Cincinnati Bengals, obviously you got to talk about Jamar Chase. On the season, you cannot deny this guy is getting a ton of production. What's really interesting, though, is he doesn't necessarily have a high volume of receptions, but it's usually really long passes, really big-time plays that has allowed Jamar Chase to have 13 TDs, 1,455 yards on the season. That is very impressive. And you saw it against the Chiefs. When the Bengals played the Chiefs last time, Jamar Chase was just able to make miraculous catches one-on-one. contested catches. So he's going to be somebody the Raiders need to look after, especially if they try to get him lined up against Brandon Faison instead of Casey Hayward. So Faison, can he handle Jamar Chase? It'll be a big test. I think Brandon Faison has really stepped up for the Raiders, filling in mid-year for Trayvon Mullen, and I think he might shock some people with how he covers Jamar Chase. Now going on to the defensive side for the Bengals, you got to talk about Hendrickson. He's their pass rusher. He's their guy. He's their main stud on defense so far this year. That's why he has 75 pressures, 15 sacks, able to make it to the Pro Bowl. Raiders are going to have to watch out for him. Fortunately, he didn't wreak too much havoc last time they played, but he's definitely capable of doing that, especially if he lines up against someone like Brandon Parker. You saw last week against the Chargers, the Raiders actually did a really good job bringing in some tight ends and bringing in some help to stop Joey Bosa, and that really helped out Derek Carr in critical situations. Like I said earlier, I believe this is going to be a run-heavy game. That's why Joe Mixon's going to be very important for the Raiders to watch out for. 13 TDs, 1,205 yards. And look, the Raiders have actually done a decent job facing the Browns, Nick Chubb, facing the Broncos, which has a decent rushing attack, and then obviously against the Colts and Jonathan Taylor, the Raiders have done a decent job containing some elite rushing attacks towards the latter part of the season. In the first half of the season, the Raiders' weakness on defense was their run defense. Now it's almost becoming somewhat of an asset. So we'll look to see how Perryman does. He's had a Pro Bowl season so far, and hopefully they can slow down Joe Mixon in this snowy game. Now, I don't know how snowy the game is going to be, 50% chance, so definitely going to be very cold nonetheless. Now, key players for the Raiders, I'm looking at Darren Waller. It's going to be his second game back from injury, back from COVID and everything, and last week was sort of a disappointing premiere for Darren Waller on primetime television, right? 8 targets, only 2 receptions for 22 yards. Probably one of his worst games since he's become a starter in 2019, but he's taken a long time off trying to recover, and he was rusty. Now, how is it going to be this upcoming game, right? Greg Olsen in the presser had positive things to say. It says Darren Waller, it was a good game for him against the Chargers, getting the rest off. And if this guy can get going, if he can be half as productive as he's been on average for us since 2019, it's a game changer for the Raiders on offense, right? Like, it's just another piece to the Renfro action. Zay Jones has been stepping up, and you saw Josh Jacobs just refuse to go down against the Chargers. So that'll be interesting. So if Waller gets going, that's going to keep people away from Hunter Renfro, who's had to have a great season due to the absence of Waller. And you see this 9 touchdowns, 1,038 yards. Man, this guy should be a Pro Bowler. And it was interesting. Against the Chargers, Renfro did not have many yards. I think he had under 30 yards as well, but he had 2 TDs. And I think that's huge for the Raiders. That's been the problem all year. Can we score in the red zone? Oh, no, we get stopped and have to kick a field goal. But you saw something change this past game. 2 TDs from Renfro. Very awesome. And obviously, you can't talk about the Raiders without talking about Max Crosby. 101 pressures, leads the NFL, Pro Football Focus All-Pro Team defensive end, and then 10 sacks on the year. So even though he has, 5 less sacks than Hendrickson, he has 26 more pressures. I mean, I would take that. 26 more pressures. That's awesome to me. So he's obviously going to be critical in this game, and I look forward to seeing what havoc he could wreak on Joe Burrow. And you saw last game, Unique Ngakoue, strip sack, Crosby, sacks. We got pressure on Joe Burrow, and I believe it will happen again this Saturday. And just a quick look at some of these lineups. Look at our defense here. Roderick Teamer filling in for Jonathan Abram at strong safety for the past few weeks, ever since he's gone down. Faison too. I think he, despite the low PFF grade, I think he's been filling in nicely. And Trayvon Merrick, one thing about him, I think he's been quietly really good on defense, because when you don't hear a defensive back's name that often, that's kind of a good thing, because that means people are afraid to throw there. And I think that's exactly what's happened with Trayvon Merrick. I know we have some decent PFF grades here for the Bengals tackles, but we wreaked havoc on them, and I really do think they are going to give up a ton of pressures this game. The strength of this team is just their weapons. Boyd, great receiver, along with Higgins and Chase. They obviously have chemistry with Joe Burrow from their time together at LSU, so we got to watch out with that. And we got to watch out with Joe Burrow, because last time he was able to convert a critical third down with his legs. We can't allow stuff like that to happen again. But to be honest, last time that we played the Bengals, the defense did fantastic. They did fantastic. the majority of the game. It was a lot closer game than people remember. I believe it was 16-13 with 5 minutes left. Bengals were ahead, and then the game really got away from us, especially when Derek Carr threw a pick. So the offense needs to step up, straight up. And I don't know if the rushing attack is necessarily going to be there. Jacobs has had a comeback towards the latter part of this season, 16th overall PFF grade for a running back. And I just think this past game it's sketchy because Jacobs really only did well because he was just amazing and broke tackles. It wasn't because we were blocking at an elite level in this rushing attack, and that worries me. I mean, he was getting contacted behind the line of scrimmage and then turning that into positive gains. Yes, that's cool, for Jacobs, but it worries me about this run blocking offensive line. So hopefully we can step it up. We see Bryan Edwards here. He had a lot more targets last time. Who knows if he'll get more involved? I believe he had 5 targets against the Chargers. And it's interesting because when he came back from COVID, we still started Deshaun Jackson, and you saw him out there less in this previous game. So maybe we'll see more Bryan Edwards against the Bengals. All in all, I am expecting an interesting matchup, and I'm excited. Let me know your guys' score predictions below. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say it's going to be 28-24, and I'm going with my Raiders. That's what I'm going to throw out there. Even though I think it's going to be a run-heavy game, I still think it's a playoff game. People are going to be aggressive. They're going to try to score a lot of points, and I'm just rooting for my team. I have a lot of confidence in this team, especially after this 4-game win streak. When you think about it, the Raiders have been in the playoffs for a long time already, and I think the veteran quarterback play by Derek Carr, it will be a huge factor in this game because this is a game where you're going to have to manage it really well because it's going to be cold and it has a 50% chance of snow. So I think that's really going to stand out. Joe Burrow, it's barely his second year. And you saw in this past game, despite the fact that Herbert had more yards than Carr, he had 30 missed passes. He had a horrible completion percentage. Derek Carr, despite having less yards than Herbert, made good decisions with the football and was able to put his team in a good position to win. So we'll see what happens. Let me know what you guys think, what you think is going to happen in this game. My name is WiFiWillie. Hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to subscribe to this channel if you want more news, updates, analysis, talk, hangout, whatever, man. Just support this channel if you enjoy these videos. Y'all have a good one. Peace out.